Warning. The system has become unstable.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there in the internet? Okay, I watched a video this morning. It's a new release from Kindra RavenMoon, and I want to get right to that. So I wrote a response. She posed questions, so I wrote answers, and I thought they were good questions, so I thought they needed answers. And we live in a time where people don't like to read, so people want to watch and listen, and they just want to listen. So I went ahead and posted it on Medium.com, and then I've already posted it, the print version on my Facebook group on there. So we're gonna go ahead and read it because this would probably be the way most people get a hold of it. So let's take a look. So, all right, is Satan a prince of darkness? So let me pull up my. There we go. Now I can see it and read it. Hopefully I'm not getting a double screen on the actual recording. So, all right, here we go. Firstly, goodness gracious, man. I got a new TV screen for a monitor. It's much bigger. And then I got the other one over here. And it's a whole lot easier to read, but still not as good as I would like it to be. Well, it's because I had to shrink it down to get it within this format. Otherwise, it would be. All right, enough of that. So, firstly, I do want to thank Kindra RavenMoon for encouraging me to scratch a long considered itch. So, and there she is on the print version. I have the link to, well, it's, you just click the thumbnail there, the icon, the video, the picture of her, and it will go directly to that video on YouTube, so you can watch it for yourself. I think that's well worth doing, so go ahead and support her. By nature and nurture, as a preteen and teen in the 1970s and 1980s, I was a self-identified theistic Satanist. At 14, I adopted the non-theistic LaVeyan view of Satan predicated solely upon the Jungian psychological concept of archetypal symbolism. And so the young Satanist pentagram wearing William Gidney there. Okay. With continued study of up-to-date science, I slowly evolved by my mid-20s into an agnostic, then a deistic, and then a theistic initiate of the satanic left-hand path. Because, there's that debate, is Satanism a left-hand path, and is a left-hand path Satanism, and, it's a little complicated. But yes, they do intersect. Not one and the same, but they're two sides of the same coin. Okay. As a Church of Satan priest in my late 20s and early 30s, I maintained its non-theistic talking point while also publicly noting, unopposed, that the Satanic Bible itself presents an Aristotelian prime mover view of the God, King of Hell, and somewhat panpsychic dark force in nature, apprehension of, resonance with, and thus comprehensible communion with Satan. And it has to be said, I am no longer a Church of Satan priest or in any way, shape, or form affiliated with that organization, so that is a reference to my past and not for my long time, well, not my present, and not for many years, a couple decades now. So, at all times, I viewed that ineffable and multi-layered creator force as the ultimate symbol of strength, order, reason, harmony, and the gothic beauty rather than the B-horror brand of the dark aesthetic. A lot of people are really into that whole ugly, demonic, devilish thing. I'm not. Now, don't get me wrong. Sure, there's some imagery like that I think is cool, from whatever point of view, horror movie point of view, black metal point of view, whatever. But in terms of my actual aesthetic, I like Memento Mori. I like the symbolism of death, and I'm all about pentagrams and fire and all kinds of good stuff. But I find the dark aesthetic to be sexy and beautiful and geometric harmony, geometrically harmonious, whether it's architecture, or it's decor, or it's photography, whatever it is. I like the beauty of it, and I like it's part of the dark aesthetic, as I said. But dark aesthetic does not have to be ugly, and a lot of people are into that. So We're into two different things, people. That's not my thing. Okay. At no point, however, have I worshipped the Christian biblical devil as a fallen angel expelled from heaven and doomed to burn in a lake of fire, as a vanquished combatant in a transgressively poetic, albeit contextually superfluous, war against a tyrannical God. So, scrolling up. Rather, Satan has always been understood, even in LaVeyan canon, as a balance factor in the esoteric tradition of the dark and light of the Chinese yin-yang symbol associated with the Greek Hermetic maxim of as above, so below. Chaos, or what I call Satania, and order, or what I call Satan, are therefore not adversaries in an ongoing battle of evil versus good, but instead gendered archetypal instantiations of the Leibnizian plurality of the unity sometimes called the monad. Okay. I have the book over there, but I don't really want to stretch to get it to put it on camera. Go read a book, people. Okay. Generally, chaos and darkness are mythically associated with a cosmic womb as an anthropomorphized great mother goddess. Likewise, order and light are allegorically aligned with the creator Sky Daddy as an anthropomorphized Lucifer as the bringer of light, in other words, i.e., enlightenment, illumination, gnosis, or undefiled wisdom. Those are all interchangeably useful terms, meaning more or less the same thing. Fractal evidence presently indicates that chaos is bounded by order. Let me say that again. Fractal evidence presently indicates that chaos is bounded by order. You know that old cliche, or it's not a cliche, riddle? That old riddle, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, according to at least some scientific evidence in the study of fractals, it seems like we have an answer to that question, and the answer to that question is order. So, thematically, mythically, from a Jungian archetypal point of view, something that Jordan B. Peterson talks about at great length, the cosmic womb, darkness, the waters, the sea, the oceanic waters, the waters that burst when a woman gives birth, those are all female, and chaos and potential and growth and evolution, right? Okay. Not chaos always in a negative connotation, although there is that, of course, but chaos as in evolutionary chaos, that which is necessary to develop and transcend stagnation. Okay. So order is mythically, typically, allegorically, again, Jungian archetypes, Jordan B. Peterson, blah, blah, blah. Order is associated commonly with, more often than not commonly, with light, with that which is ordered, which is reasoned, logical, scientific, male, masculine, society, okay, the chaos of nature, right, and the order of society. So these are gendered archetypes, and there are exceptions to that rule, of course. If you're gonna do a comparative religion study of mythologies and that kind of thing, you're gonna find variation. But the rule rather than the exception is what we're addressing here. So okay, so having put a little spin context on that, let me start this paragraph once more. Fractal evidence presently indicates that chaos is bounded by order. Oh, I'm sorry. So, again, the chicken and the egg. So, order, and I believe this is correct, order bounds chaos. So it's the male attribute. It's the reasoned attribute. It's the logical attribute. Now, there's more to it. Let's move ahead because I do touch upon it. Fractal evidence presently indicates that chaos is bounded by order, which thereby supports the doctrinal patrifocal rather than patriarchal per se view within the Infernal tradition that espouses a balance of evolutionary creative / artistically inclined chaos and conservative hierarchical / logically precise order, with a situationally pragmatic focus on the latter. Okay. Ergo, rather than devil versus God, the infernal tradition concurs with the LaVeyan premise that God slash Satan slash nature are but three designations for the same ineffable balance factor, or what Leibniz and others throughout the history of philosophy have referred to as a monad, that is metaphorically and literally bifurcated as pluralistic personalities or identities of a unity experienced as the dark mother and goddess of the is to be, Satanya, and luminous father and God of is, Satan. Now, scrolling. Relevantly, Kindra RavenMoon, posed the following questions to theistic Satanists such as myself that reject the Christian mythology of Satan. Question 1. Why refer to the Creator God and or King of the earth as a mere prince of darkness? It's a good question. Question 2. Why adopt Christianized modern myths such as the classical poems of Dante's Inferno and John Milton's Paradise Lost with an otherwise non-Christian ideological lore? Of course, another good question. I wouldn't be answering them if they were bad questions, just so you know, in case there's any curiosity. Question 3A. Why refer to oneself as a lone wolf when wolves are pack animals and there are unhealthy antisocial connotations associated with such a label? Question 3B. Bravo. Why adopt such a lone wolf LaVeyan label if one is not a non-theistic LaVeyan Satanist? Okie dokie. So here we go. In reply, I dutifully present the following answers. Answer 1. When I became a self-identified LaVeyan Satanist in the 1980s and served as the spearhead of the fledgling infernal tradition of the left-hand path, I developed the following mantra. Hail Satan, Prince of Darkness, God of the Strong. It began as a meditative practice during a pair of serious medical procedures, including an emergency surgery I had on my right hand, as fear is part of the human condition, but facing one's fears is integral, however you want to pronounce it, is integral to initiatory stratification. The phrase Prince of Darkness is a generic but traditional appellation contextually utilized as utilitarian means to an end. It's a convenient vehicle. Convenient linguistic vehicle. Later, while studying the theistic Setian religion, which posits that Set, the arguable precursor to Satan, is the non-natural prince of darkness as a would-be interdimensional entity endowed with a psychocentric subjective reality of conscious sentience existing within a natural objective reality, which is to say he is a deity of order bounded by chaos. I accepted such terminology as another specific literary iteration of a more broadly defined satanic and or left-hand path lineage. In other words, it appears because they find that Set exists within the universe, and within the universe, obviously there are interdimensional realms of being, but it's within a singular, apparently, according to Setian theology and cosmogony and cosmology, it's a singular universe. To me, that makes him a lesser deity versus a creator god of that which is. And having said that, it means he is subject to the potential whim of chaos as opposed to imposing his order on chaos, and which it now appears from at least some fractal scientific evidence to be the case, and hopefully is the case with forthcoming ongoing scientific substantiation, because it fits my pet theory, and of course I want to be correct, right? So I don't like the notion of order being bounded by chaos. That doesn't fit into my Weltanschauung, and so there we go. However, I think that generally speaking, the Temple of Set, the Setian approach to left-hand path religiosity, is a fairly sophisticated approach, and I'm not knocking it. Here's just a theological disagreement, and there's room in this in this existence for disagreement without getting our panties all bunched in a wad. And they, as another, in my opinion, legitimate denomination of the left-hand path, they also invoke the term Prince of Darkness, which again I just find to be, it's a traditional linguistic vehicle that's just, it has its place in the mythology, in the lore, and the lineage, right? You don't have to adopt it, but you can choose to adopt it. So to me, that's all I'm saying is, here's another example of a initiatory body that has a sophisticated approach to left-hand path initiation, which also does that. But I'm also explaining that their approach to a God bound within this objective universe, which is not an objective universe, because consciousness is fundamental, not physicalism. But having said that, which even Dr. Aquino writes about in field theory, but I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But there's that difference also, again, that I do not believe that the God of I believe the God of is order, and that chaos is bound by order, which is the God of is. So there is that difference. Okay. For several years, I have wrestled with the ongoing appreciation for such diverse language, i.e., Prince of Darkness and whatever else, and God of Is, diverse language versus its facially evident diminutive description of my own science-based comprehension and personal apprehension of Satan as the God of my understanding, i.e., the pluralized personality of the monad with which I organically resonate. With that lingering internal debate still pestering me whenever heralding the aforementioned motto being Hail Satan, Prince of Darkness, God of the Strong, I hereby feel inspired by Lady RavenMoon to make the following doctrinal developmental proclamation. Bum, bum, bum. I can do that as the Patriarch of the Infernal tradition. Something that goes back, 38 years now? 38, 39 years? So, the original motto remains permissible as a mantra for initiates of the Infernal tradition that personally prefer and or benefit from it. In other words, you can do it because the left-hand path is highly personalized, of course. Now, within this tradition, as within other denominational traditions, I mean, there are lines of demarcation, but I think, generally speaking, left-hand path denominations are fairly loosey-goosey because it's a personalized experience. It's experiential, it's revelatory, but it's also, or the better approaches should be science-based, right? Because order, right? It should be comprehensible as well as apprehensible on the revelatory experiential basis of initiatory intuition, or call it what you will. Okay. The original motto remains permissible as a mantra for initiates of the Infernal tradition that personally prefer and or benefit from it. Organizationally, however, the Infernal Order of the Left-Hand Path shall hereafter supplant the title of Prince for the sovereign sobriquet of Lord, as chaotic darkness is bounded by ordered light. And there's a whole lot more there, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole now. There's a lot more there that I could footnote and wax on, wax off about, but that suffices to get the point across. Order. Okay, answer 2. So answer 1. That's why I have employed Prince of Darkness. That's why initiates of the Infernal tradition are okie dokie and continuing to do so if that floats their personal boat, because water rises to its own level, sinks to its own level, seeks its own level. But within the organization, because it's a motto, it's a maxim, it's an aphorism, whatever. It's a bumper sticker phrase that I commonly use, especially when finishing an essay like this essay, for example. So organizationally, I will no longer say Prince of Darkness, but Lord of Darkness, because the Lord of Chaos, the order that bounds chaos. So it's no longer a diminutive, but it is a elevation, recognition of the elevation of the God of Is. But there we go. So that answers question 1. So answer 2. It is the well-founded disposition of the infernal tradition that both satanic religions of the left-hand path and Judeo-Christianity itself are classically defined mystery religions. Indeed, the latter is well documented as a hybrid of many earlier wisdom teachings from Sumer, Egypt, Greece, and even India, encompassing relevant mythological allegories and astrotheology. Drawing a Hegelian elixir of the Levian third side from that very deep bottle of theosophical inspiration, there is an undeniable vintage of satanic mystery teaching to be positively savored from such otherwise soured sacramental wine. So Christianity has a lot of much older influences, what I'm saying, and since there is a strain of Satanism of the left-hand path that is closely associated with Christianity, independent of the mystery religion aspect of it. That means that it too dates to those older cultures and religious mythologies and belief systems. And whereas I would argue that the infernal tradition is independent as a satanic ideology of Christianity in its most devil worship form, I also insist that Christianity is a mystery religion and Satanism is a mystery religion, and that the mystery religions intertwine just as we do linguistically. In terms of linguistic anthropology, you have the Indo-European language, the Indo-Germanic language. Now, of course, this is separate from the Slavic languages, and separate from the Asiatic languages, right? It's separate from Hebrew. But if we're talking about English and all the Romance languages and all those derivatives of the Germanic languages, we have the the language. They have the original language, sort of like, pre-Confucian Tower of Babel kind of situation, right? So there's crossover, and it's because of migrations of people and just, centuries and centuries of people intermingling on a social level and adopting one another's cultures in piecemeal and sometimes in whole, but certainly in piecemeal, and then affecting one another's religiosity. And you see it in the myths. I mean, the names might be different and there might be slight variations, but essentially they're so often the same stories and the same gods. So that's what I'm saying. There's crossover there without the infernal tradition or other left-hand path denominations or sects being in and of themselves Christian devil worship, Christian heresy derivatives. That's elementary. There's plenty of that out there, and I'm not saying that doesn't exist or knocking it per se. That's your thing. But I'm saying there is. It's hair splitting. Okay, it is in the fine print, but there is a difference. And nobody outside of our sex cares. So if you get your panties in a bunch because they don't understand me, and and they say this about Satanism or they say that about Satanism, and that's wrong, and everyone should conform to what I know. Like, no, you probably don't know. The average person doesn't even know their own satanic religion, the history, the literature, the art. You don't, and you surely don't know anything about Judaism or Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism. And I'm not saying everybody. So again, if this doesn't apply to you, again, don't get butthurt. Just as a generality, there's only so much a person can know. Life is very complicated and very busy, and most people really just don't care enough to learn about their own stuff, their own histories, their own heritage, really. They just go with the flow. They just do what everybody else in their in-group does, and so why are they going to look into out-groups? There's just a select few of us that are interested in that sort of like comparative religion study or philosophy or, cultural anthropology and social psychology and that kind of thing. It's a very small number, so have a little grace and take the stick out of your butt, people. Okay. Of course, this is not to at all imply that these disparate paths are just two different sides of the same coin, as they most certainly are not. Okay. I mean, let's state the obvious. Nevertheless, within the Abrahamic religions, there are attributes of various value to an initiate of the infernal tradition. Within the Christian literary paradigm, this includes the above referenced classic poems. That would be, again, Dante's Inferno and John Milton's Paradise Lost. And, okay. Personally, I favor Paradise Lost, with a commonplace affinity for the passage about the mind being its own reality that can make a heaven of hell and vice versa, as well as the infamous declaration that it is better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. Obviously, the latter sentiment presages modern psychology and quantum physics, but echoes its era of supernatural religiosity. So again, there's crossover. That's why Lady RavenMoon, my dear. And of course, I'm speaking for myself and those that would concur with me, because your questions are very valid, and I very much enjoyed your video. And yeah. So I don't say that with mockery. I'm just saying that's why. That's my answer from this tradition, and there are others that would be in agreement with me. But as you well know, because you too are a veteran in this world, in this left-hand path. There are seemingly innumerable ways of not only individual initiates' approach to the left-hand path or Satanism, but in terms of sectarian divide as well. So you and I know that. One needs not literally ascribe to the Christian scripture and or tradition to find a substantive satanic corollary to such so-called Christian concepts. Chief among these intersections as a comparative religion study hails from the biblical book of Genesis, wherein the Gnostic Luciferian Gnosis, right, where the Gnostic Luciferian serpent sets humanity free within the counter reading of the expulsion from paradise, a serpentine blessing so valuable that its direct recipients chose it despite, or perhaps in spite, of the various curses accompanying it at the hand of their jealous creator. So that's the apple story, people. The Edenic the Edenic tale of the apple, crunch, crunch, apple. So answers 3 through answers 4. So she posed those, that's why I did them as question 3 and question 4, because she had a twofold set of questions within one question, and so I'm just answering in one fell swoop here. But I did want to separate them to give them their own respect for because they're good questions, and so I wanted to isolate them and make sure that I address them at, okay, this is what she's asking. So, but here in my response, I find it just as easy to just amalgamate them, to consolidate them, and to respond. So answers 3 and 4 together. LaVeyan canon consistently defines, okay, because remember, she asked, why would you call yourself a lone wolf when there are negative connotations associated with that? And why would you do that if you're a theistic Satanist and not a non-theistic LaVeyan Satanist? Okay, so having reminded you perhaps of the questions, let me start again. LaVeyan canon consistently defines humanity as a social animal and repudiates expressions of antisocial behavior among Satanists. In fact, LaVey does that in the Satanic Bible itself. It also consistently denounces the vast sum of humanity as a herd of stupid consumers. Now, I want to pause a moment to say, because it's a question I hear all the time posed, if you're antagonistic to the Satanic Bible, if you're antagonistic to Anton LaVey, then this doesn't apply to you anyway. Okay, I've been a Satanist for a very long time, and since the 70s, and in the 80s as a youngster, when I accepted the moniker of a LaVeyan Satanist. I would say I kind of was in concurrence with 99 point something of the Satanic Bible. And with the vast changes in my life experiences and ongoing development of my scientific mind and my religious and spiritual opinions and experiences, I would say, this computer over here, I would say that, I'm throwing spaghetti at a wall here, people. I don't have any hard statistics or facts on this. I haven't done a scientific study on that. My lab coat is in the other room. I'm wearing this one. The lab coat, I can go get it, but the lab coat is in the other room. And so I'm going to just spitball and say something like, I don't know, 97 or 98% of LaVeyan philosophy, the LaVeyan Weltanschauung, and of course the dark aesthetic. I mean, I'm in complete concurrence with the dark aesthetic, and but in terms of his philosophy and its lineage into what becomes known as LaVeyan Satanism, I'm still in agreement with 97, 98% of it. Now, things there are some things that are pretty big, but in terms of the majority of the body of his work, I'm still in agreement with it. So if you're not, then you're not, and that's fine. I'm not telling you what to believe. I couldn't possibly care less what you believe. I believe in preaching to the choir. I'm not, forgive me, I'm not trying to be crass here. I know there are people mourning him, but I'm not Charlie Kirk. I am not going to sit at a table with a sign saying, change my mind, and then engage you in a bunch of bombastic, inflammatory topics. I don't care what you think. I do not care. And I believe good fences make good neighbors, so stay the hell off my yard. As, like Gavin McGinnis, get off my lawn, I think is the name of his show, or one of his shows. Exactly. Precisely. So you do you, I'll do me. And my whole interest as a lone wolf is being in communion with other members of my pack. And so however that happens, whether it's this video or you recognize me on the street, which has happened from Florida to New York City to, Germany. Literally, I've been recognized in public, or if you just see the medallion I wear or something, whatever, that opens a conversation between us, and that we find out that, we are ideological and or religious allies or comrades, as it were, comrade, that's my interest. I believe in the whole mutual admiration society approach to this, because life is short and the world is full of crazy people, and I'm not interested in doing that. Other people are, and that's fine. Again, you do you. You want to evangelize Satan all day long. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hang out with Mutual Admiration Society, and I'm going to preach to the choir. Okay, let me back up a second. So answers 3 through 4. LaVeyan canon consistently defines humanity as a social animal and repudiates expressions of antisocial behavior among Satanists. It also consistently denounces the vast sum of humanity as a herd. That's a Nietzschean phrase. Well, it's often ascribed to Nietzsche, but okay. I'm sure he's not the only person in human history that said it before the 19th century, but it's a Nietzschean phrase, as a herd of stupid consumers. It's part of the invisible war, people. Notably, being a non-joiner, which is, again, another phrase often used by LaVey and his successors. Okay. Notably, being a non-joiner does not exclude one from participating in human congress, but instead highlights the discrimination exercised to avoid needlessly participating in an unproductive herd mentality with a horde of repellent NPCs, non-player characters. I'm using that's 21st century language. NPCs within this realm of existence that the Infernal tradition recognizes as a fractal holographic simulacrum commonly called the Matrix. Alternately stated, it is far more likely that a so-called, even self-identified lone wolf Satanist is simply an individual not yet united with the meta-tribe that is their wolf pack and is surrounded by a collectivist herd of oftentimes antagonistic, anti-satanic reactionaries controlled by Orwellian groupthink, rather than the synthesis of self-preservation grounded animal instinct and self-actualized critical thinking, individualism. So, those are great questions. Please go watch your video. It's like 11 minutes long, so I'm sure it's shorter than this by now. And it was very well done. I appreciated it, and it made me scratch this itch. So to that, I shall close by saying, "Hail, Kindra RavenMoon, and hail Satan, Lord of Darkness, God of the strong," people. So here we go.
Warning. The system has become unstable.